10 seconds to get started here.
Okay.
I want to make sure I see it go live. And here it comes. As soon as I see myself on YouTube, we'll get going here.
No problems about it.
Here we come. And good afternoon. This is Andy Hofer coming to you today for Full Circle Magic with another in our series of Q&A sessions with notable magicians from around the world. Today we're talking with Maxwell Blade, direct from his theater in Hot Springs, Arkansas. He's a master of magic from close-up to grand illusions, and he's toured all around the country before settling in Hot Springs 18 years ago. I think I got that number right. Since then, his family-friendly performances have been the state's top-rated live shows. I found yesterday that a quick search on TripAdvisor will bring up a long list of 5-star reviews of Maxwell's show from happy audience members. So, please everyone at FCM join me in welcoming Maxwell to Full Circle Magic. Good afternoon, Maxwell.
Good to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here, and thank everybody for logging on today. Should be a lot of fun. Matter of fact, I'm right on my stage. Created a little spot for me on my stage today in my theater, so it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. So that's actually your set behind you there, huh?
It is a set, Bob. When I built this smaller theater 5 years ago, when I downsized my entire production, this theater is more of a set. If you look around, it's more like a Victorian magic room. I've got a fireplace and bookshelf over here, my grand piano, and all the props are pretty much either on the shelvings or they're brought on. So it's almost as if you're in my magic room when I'm on stage. So it's very unique in the sense it's a set. I enjoy it.
That's great. Sounds like an intimate setting. How many people come into that theater again?
This theater, full wall-to-wall, and we can put 112 people in this little venue. It's very intimate, very small, very likable. It's very intimate. People seem to enjoy it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I like I said before, I really hope to be passing through one of these days and be able to stop and see it. I had a couple of friends on Full Circle Magic comment in the last day or so that they either have seen you and said it was wonderful, or are hoping to go see it themselves. So, yeah.
Oh, great.
I'm sure that they're going to be watching this.
I love that. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, we're running every night in the summertime. I run a limited schedule in the fall and winter, a couple of days a week. But right now we run pretty much a full 90-day run, daily shows, sometimes 2 and 3 shows a day. If I sell out the 8 o'clock performances, we book at 2 o'clock, and then many times we go ahead and book a 10 p.m. show, which are always fun because we're kind of worn out, but at the same time it's a fun show. So right now we're running full steam ahead every day. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that is great. That is great. So let me start out for a second by going back in time. People really love to hear how people got started in all of this. So can we go back to the past and ask you what were some of your first inspirations to perform magic? What interested you in it first, and when did you actually start performing?
Well, I saw Mark Wilson on TV. I must have been 10, 12 years of age, and I'll never forget the multiplying ball trick with the large billiard balls. And from that point on, I was just intrigued by the art of magic and the mystery of it. I began to learn through books. I'm pretty much self-taught. I checked out every book I could get my hands on, and I sort of began to learn magic in a kind of a slow process. I was also a musician, and really fresh out of high school, I pursued the music business even before the magic, but eventually the two gelled together, and I sort of had an epiphany moment one time in this large venue, and the band I was with for 8 years was playing behind me, and I pulled out a table full of magic, and I performed this little cabaret set, and virtually the entire place went berserk. And I thought, there are a million bands trying to make it big, and we were certainly a good band and still friends with all those guys today, but I knew that I could create something special in the magic world, so I basically just switched gears and began to produce magic, and it happened very quickly. When I was about 23, 24 is when I produced my first show, which was smaller, but by the time I was 30, I had a full-fledged 17 cast member traveling illusion show. That inspiration was going back to that single moment of just seeing Mark Wilson on TV, and of course, seeing Copperfield on television growing up, and then seeing the likes of Jeb McBride on video and Michael Amar, and those guys were always inspirational to me as well.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you say that you were more self and book taught then, and you didn't have any particular mentors necessarily that you worked with?
You know, I talk about mentors in my show. Some of it's fiction, some of it's nonfiction, but I basically was self-taught. You know, I had a few fellows along the way after I joined the Magic Club that would travel through and do lectures, and I would learn little things from and pick up things like that. You know, I think someone told me the other day that they said, you know, the unique thing about my first big illusion show, which debuted in 1994, is I had never really been to a real big illusion show live. I'd seen Copperfield on TV, but I didn't have any way to copy anybody. So my first show, I mean, I had all these incredible props, and I just put together a unique show that I thought would be entertaining and fun for people. And so it was unique in the sense that I didn't really have anybody to copy, nor did I copy pattern or routines. I just had these incredible illusions, came up with my own stories, my own music, and just put together what I thought would be a fun, interesting magic show. And I think that's something pretty unique on my part to just have started in that aspect, as opposed to watching a million shows and trying to copy or imitate other folks. I've just never been one to copy people, which has always been a plus in the magic business for me, to be sort of unique.
That's great. That's yeah. I mean, there's a lot of talk about people trying to find themselves and not imitate others, so that they find their own character. But if you did that from the beginning, you were ahead of the game there.
Well, sure. I think, you know, being professional for as long as I've been in the magic business, you have to have something a little different. It's the same as the music business. I learned that long ago playing music. You got to have something different. You got to be different. You know, I mean, look at my hair. I've had this has been my trademark for 30 years. But just having a style that was kind of, J. Scott Berry calls it sort of the uppity, sort of zany kind of character that I am on stage. And it's a roller coaster of emotion, from comical bits to heavy magic, and it's sometimes a little bit of mentalism. And just, I try to cover all the realms of how I can touch your emotion in my show. So it's a very interesting, I think my story is interesting in the aspect of what avenues I came from and where it's come to now. And as I look back, it just seems like yesterday I opened my theater here in Palm Springs, you know, 18 years ago. Matter of fact, I started my 19th season August 15th, and it's just been an incredible adventure and a journey, which I enjoy even more today than I did in the beginning. I'm just comfortable in my own skin. I don't have to think about the tricks. I was genuinely just having a blast, and I look forward to coming to work every day. Well, that's a blessing in itself.
Well, you couldn't ask for much more. It's interesting that you've experienced, you know, the contrast of performing on the road with the big show, and also having your own venue that you can control everything, instead of having to worry about, you know, the kind of things that can happen to somebody when they're going into a venue they haven't necessarily seen before. Not to mention the stress of being on the road, the stress that puts on, you know, the logistics and family life and everything else. So you must have experienced a really big, and you know, you've kind of pulled off the ultimate magic trick. Instead of you having to go and find the audience, you found a way to have the audience come to you.
Well, that was really what I wanted to do when I opened my own theater, because my show had gotten to be so big. And back in those days, I didn't do anything small. I mean, I had 17 people, and I had a big show and a lot of equipment. And you said it right, when every theater we would go into, and basically, my manager was also my music manager. So, you know, we basically just went into communities and with four-wall theater, we would book it, we'd promote it, and I'd do 3 days there and go on to the next. My family was a part of that show, but it became so big that it was hard to make money, one, and it was a lot to do. So in 94, 95, my wife and I thought, you know, we we've got to find a place where we can put a theater. And at that time, I really didn't have the interest in going to Vegas or any of the bigger venues around the country that hosted Magic. But I came to Hot Springs, Arkansas for the weekend, and I thought this is a beautiful community. A lot of tourists come here. There were a couple other theaters that had sort of a country music comedy type shows, and I felt this will be a real hit here. And man, I didn't have a lot of money to do it. I really went out on a limb, but I just made it work. So it's a beautiful thing to come to work every day and not have to worry about traveling. And you're right. The biggest problem with theaters is they're all different. We were constantly running to get cables or additional lighting or building traps and something. It was always a project, every theater that we went into. And somewhat can be simplified, I think, now with some of the knowledge I have. I would probably do things a little bit simpler because bigger is not always better. But back in the day, it was quite an undertaking to even set up a show. It took more than 6 hours to set those big performances up. Now, you know, this smaller venue, I can set up in no time at all. So it was an adventure to do the road shows, but it is so much easier just getting up. I live on the lake out there. I drive to work, open the doors, and by the end of the day, we're sold out every day. So that's really a blessing and really enjoyable for me. I don't have to worry about traveling or where I'm going to be or where I'm going to book next. I just come to work every day.
That's an amazing model. I'll tell you, I'm very envious. I may have to come there and pick your brains someday. As I said, my interest in doing something a little like that in retirement in a few years is you're an inspiration to me there. I think I have a location in mind. But
thank you. I picked a place that wasn't full of magicians, but a lot of tourists came into. And I'll tell you, my bigger theater was an old movie theater built in the 40s. And I had to totally renovate. It took me 10 months to renovate it. Now, I grew up around the renovation business. So I built my house myself. So I do have the knowledge and the skills to do that, but it was a large undertaking. And I think that show had about 12 cast members, and we run there for 12 years straight. And it was a real success. But then after divorce a few years ago and the leasing problems of that building, it fell apart, and I just came down the street 6 or 7 blocks. A friend of mine owns a lot of the property here. We built this little theater in 3 weeks, and off we started again. And it's been really unique. I thought it was a curse losing that big theater, but to look back, it was a real blessing in disguise. And this is so easy to take care of. And I'm having a blast. I mean, it just doesn't get any easier. You talk to Michael Lamar or Jeff McBride or Jay Scott. They've been here. And they see what I get to do every day, and it is a lot of fun. And Michael Lamar told me the last festival, which made me feel really good. We were finishing the festival. I'd taken him out in my boat. We were out in the middle of the water, and Michael says, you know, Maxwell, I'm not envious of very many people, but you really have got it going on. And I can't tell you how good that made me feel coming from Michael and looking after those performers all these years, and then getting the blessing to perform on the same stage through the Weekend of Wonder that we'll talk about. So, yeah, it's quite unique, and it is really a lot of fun.
You mentioned the Weekend of Wonder. J. Scott Berry just posted something on our thread on Full Circle about that a few minutes ago. I was looking at the brochures. It sounds like a fantastic show. And you hosted that at your theater last year. Are you doing that again this year?
We did. About 10 years ago, J. Scott Berry was performing a lecture here for the Little Rock Magic Club, and we ran into each other, and I let Jay stay at my lake home, which is where I live now. Then it was just a little weekend getaway for my wife and I, but we started talking about, we ought to do a festival here. And a couple years ago when we said, Jay, we were on the phone, I said, let's do this festival. We've been talking about it. So, man, we set the date, and Jay got on the phone and called Jeff and Michael and Dirk Lysander, and they said, we're on board. And we hosted the first here. It was the Knockout Smash. It's a Weekend of Wonder where the public can come in. You can see all the one-man shows for $10 right here in my theater. And then we have a gala on Friday and Saturday night where you can see all of us on one big show. All the guys do lectures and workshops, the ones that do those. And it was such a smash hit that the city's now giving us large Civic Center's given us a large venue that holds 1,000 people for the gala this year. Everybody in town jumped on board, and since then We've done one in North Carolina, in Asheville, and it was the real test because we had no freebies out there, or no theaters, or really any money. So we pulled it off out there. It was a big smash hit, and it's really coming to be, I think, one of the biggest festivals in the world. It's something that Jay and I have really worked hard to bring. And we hope in 5 years we have them all over the planet. But he and I make a really good, interesting team. We're very different. Our styles are different, but we have such a love of the art of magic, and so do Michael. And, you know, the core team is really Jay and I, Michael, and Jeff. But with Dirk and then Andrew Goldenhurst coming in, and what a performer he is. I really enjoyed him in Nashville. And then all the guys we have from John Venus, who's been in my show for a couple of years, and Rokas, the little guy from Lithuania. It is going to be an incredible event. So if you haven't got tickets, you guys that are close, man, go to the Weekend of Wonder. The tickets will be on sale tomorrow, September 18th, 19th, and 20th. And we certainly feel that the next 10 years, this will be the festival, or one of the biggest festivals in the world, that people really flock to go see. It's been quite successful. There are, not only to our surprise, but that was our dream, but it's really happening a little quicker than what we even thought. So it's wonderful to be a part of it, and it's awesome for me to look at this postcard and to see, you know, myself with Jeff and Michael and Jay and these guys are real blessing for me. I grew up watching these guys and have honed my craft to the point where I'm, you know, reached the level to be recognized by those peers, and a real blessing it is, and just a blast to be around them, and I love the camaraderie of the close knit camaraderie of the magicians, as opposed to maybe musicians or other clubs. It's really unique, and really all the guys are just fantastic. The performers are fantastic, and these shows are something to see. And for us all to come together in one location is quite unique, and people really are loving the festival, and we're looking forward to it. We're gearing up for it. So my season ends here later today, while we'll be full stream ahead getting ready for this year's festival. So, man, if you're within 5 states, come and make it. It's great. It's a grand event to see.
That is really impressive. We do have material on this on the thread, which we've got both a. We'll post down a link if people are interested in attending. But that's September 19th through 21st. I'm seeing here. And
that's right. It's a 3-day festival now. We may expand it in the future years, but right now it's 3 days for the VIP event on the 18th. But the show starts at noon on the 19th, and they go all the way 8 o'clock on Sunday night. We have shows all throughout the day, the lectures, the workshops, and the big gala will be on the 20th at the convention center, where we'll see the 1,000 people, and all the main stars that you see on the poster will be performing on one big show. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun.
That's great that you can work also with your, with your city. If you're already in a place that's a kind of a tourist destination in your region, you're bringing, you're already providing something for people to do who come in there anyway. But now you're bringing in a ton of business into the city. They must be really happy about that. I can't imagine how many hotel rooms and restaurant meals they must serve.
Exactly. Steve Ayers is the head of our advertising promotion commission here, and he and I have worked together on projects before. But when we decided to bring it in, he goes, "Well, we're gonna let you look and see what you can do the first year." But as soon as that festival ended, I got a call from him, and they came in with some pretty big money support for us. But not only that, but banners for the street, and of course to get a 1,000-seat venue given to us with all free promotion from the city of Hot Springs was a real blessing and a good thing to have. But again, they saw the impact it had on our city and the hotel rooms and how many people that brought it. Not only do we have the performances, but we have magicians every restaurant and club and in the city parks. There's free shows, so it's just a magical town. All the downtown area just transformed into this fantastic wonder of magic and wonderment. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so I'm going to have to talk to my wife about stopping by there one of these Septembers for sure.
Yeah, good. We'd love to have you, man. Just make a trip.
Yep. Well, like I said, I passed by. I'm going to be passing by the area. Maybe we'll stop over sometime as we're on our way to visit my son in college in Arizona. That's great.
Absolutely.
Great.
you're thinking about opening your own theater one day, come on down and we'll talk about it, because I know the ins and outs. I tell you, not a lot of people have done what I've done with that aspect of entertainment, but you know, it's not always been easy, but I had a dream and I made it work. I made it happen.
That's awesome, because you're definitely picking a dream right out of my head. I'm going to take you up on that one of these days for sure.
Anytime, my friend.
So let's see here. We have a bunch of different things that people typically. Oh, you know what's the one thing you mentioned the music business early on, performing with a rock band. Now you're a musician yourself as well.
Oh yes, yeah. I started playing the piano when I was 5. My father was a musician. My grandmother. So I've always been around the music, and I was going to be a rock star. When I was in the 1st grade, I told everybody from when I was 7 or 8 till I was out of high school, I'm going to be a rock star. And you know, in just saying that and believing in yourself, eventually I auditioned for a rock band that a friend of mine was putting together and got the job. I was a really good keyboard player and an Elton John freak, so I learned all those Elton John licks, and I still do music live. Right to the left of me is my grand piano, so during the show I'll do an Elton John song or maybe one of my original tunes. I use one of my songs from the 80s that I recorded with the band Shark Avenue as a soundtrack for one of my multiplying ball illusion, which, by the way, is Jeff McBride's favorite trick of mine. But yeah, I write a lot of music. Next year, I hope to have about 90% of the music I've written for my show will be all mine. I use some commercial bits that seem to fit the illusions perfectly. But yeah, I still write music and sit at this piano every day and come up with new material. So I still enjoy it, just different than what I used to do as far as traveling with a rock band, yes. But for 8 years, that's what I did.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm actually very curious about what other performing arts and arts that magicians also like to be involved in. I think it can have a real influence on people's artistic sense.
I think so too. Just like J. Scott Berry and Andrew Goldenhurst, fantastic musicians, and we'll sit down and have some jam sessions and maybe do some things live on stage. But I think there's a lot of magicians that are also musicians, and maybe you know, gelling those art forms together was somewhat of an advantage for me, especially when I first started, you know, performing close-up magic. Being so agile in my fingers and having the agility that I had in my hands, it was really easy for me to learn fairly difficult tricks and illusions and card flourishes and back palm, you know, things that are hard to learn. I picked up on fairly well. Maybe that's from my piano playing, but I enjoy music just different than I used to. And I'm very particular about the soundtracks I use for the illusions that I perform. I spend a lot of time picking that music because I want it to be perfect and I want it to touch you emotionally. A lot of my show is simply choreographed to the music and the magic and the lights. I do talk. I do a lot of comedy in this show as opposed to my big production because it's a one-man show. I'm on stage by myself. I'm not surrounded by girls in costume and tigers and snakes like I used to have. So I've had to develop the comedic side of myself, which is I'm a really funny guy, and I just had to develop those aspects of my character when I switched gears and downsized to this little theater. But the music plays a big part in my show.
Well, you touch on a number of different areas of interest there. Again, thinking of running your own theater and doing the music and lights and other things. What kind of a staff do you need to run things in terms of during running of the show? Sound staff, lighting staff, that kind of thing, or do you have it all automated, or a handful of people can do it all?
I have a handful of people. I like hands-on production. I don't like pre-programmed. In the larger theater, I had 4 girls on stage, a backstage manager, and 2 people backstage running curtains, and then, of course, the girl. And then I had a sound tech and a light tech and a spotlight person. Excuse me. Here, just to my right is a window. It's part of the set. It looks like just a window in a room, and my sound man is placed there. I've got a small soundboard and a small light board and some effects, and one man does all 3 of those at one time. It's not about a light show here as much as it is nice effects that fit the illusion and to make people feel a certain way. And then I have a young lady who brings props on and off or moves tables around. It's well choreographed, and I don't have to think about what to do next or what's coming on next. But I've always liked having a sound man right there because something may happen where you may have to change this or that, and the light person, as opposed to have it automated. Now, when you're on the road, I understand for some of you guys that are on the road, you have to do that because it's cost effective. You don't have automated switches and pedals for lights. But I think with a live theater, it's nice to have a sound and a light tech person back there. But it's just one guy who does it all now, and one young lady. Of course, I think I have 4 on staff here. There's a box office person and a snack bar, and we have a magic shop here. I have a magic shop in the lobby. And yesterday, interesting enough, I signed the lease on the next 2 buildings over from me that are connected to my theater, and I'm going to put in the Maxwell Blade Curiosity and Oddities Museum because I collect those things. I have about 150 really bizarre items from around the world, and we're going to have a little museum where you can just pay to walk through and see those items, or you can buy a combo ticket to the magic show and the museum. But that's something exciting that just come to pass in the last week. But anyway, I do prefer a live sound man to be there to work with sound and lights as opposed to an automated system. For me, I would just like that.
That's great. Wow. Yeah, I'm still writing notes down. A lot of people are a one-man show, but you're like a one-man enterprise. I was going to ask if you had things like a magic shop area, snack bar, things like that. So now you said you have a museum of bizarre effects. This is something new, you said?
Yes. Well, I have of course, the box office area. Then we have a snack bar where you can buy snacks, just like a movie theater. And if you go to maxwellblade.com, there's probably pictures there. And I do have a magic shop, but I don't sell a lot of items. What we do, we created the Maxwell Blade Magic Kit, which comes with a hand-signed bag with a 7-galley deck, a hot rod, sponge balls, a magic wand, a signed poster, and one or two other little items in there. That's $20, tax included. And believe it or not, that magic kit funds my entire operation. For my bills, my payroll, and everything is funded just from those $20 magic kits. Because if you have a lot of magic, one person won't want to know what everything is. But if you have a bag sitting there with Maxwell Blade signed on it, and the girls have them stacked in there 20 at a time, people run by, hand you $20, and out the door they go. It funds my entire operation, I kid you not.
That's genius. That is genius. How much do you
museum will
tickets?
But the museum is something we've wanted to do, but I didn't want a different location because this is what I do and I do best. But to add next door, the young lady next door is going to move a few doors down. Was a beautiful little thing because I can just pop a hole in the wall. There's the Maxwell Blade Museum. It'll be a museum where you walk through, you can't touch anything, and there's no tour guides over there. Just pay the fee and walk through. It'll be perfect for the city of Hot Springs. They need something else like this downtown for folks to come in and take a break from walking around in the sun. So yeah, I'm a branded name. I do have the Maxwell Blade cards, the Maxwell Blade T-shirts, cups, hats, and we'll have the Maxwell Blade Magic Kits, as we will do for the Weekend of Wonder. We'll have Weekend of Wonder Magic Kits. So we're working this year to more brand the name. I've worked hard to make, establish my name, but there's no reason why after this many years I shouldn't have a branded line of products, and they sell well.
That is awesome. What do you charge for a ticket to the show itself?
Well, when we move to this area, you have to be careful not to overcharge. Next year, the ticket price will be $20 for the adults and $15 for children. Right now, my ticket prices are $18 for adults and $13 for children. But we do sell out nightly. But next year, we're going to increase it just a little bit. The museum next door will be $7.50 person. But if you buy a magic show ticket, you get tickets for $5 each if you want to go to the museum as well, which will increase revenue tremendously, I do believe. So we had ticket prices down. I mean, I know a lot of areas, if I were somewhere else, I could probably get $50 a ticket. But for this area, we fill it up every night, and it's cost for the tourists that come here. It's effective. You can't price yourself out. You'll have empty seats.
Absolutely. No, I think it's genius to have. I mean, you're almost following a good Disney model there by having something for them to pick up on the way out. You can double your intake from each kid at least. If they pick,
Absolutely. You know, the magic kits, I didn't want it to be the kind of kit that you throw most of it away and then you keep this thing all that. Everything in that kit, if you learn it, you can do a half-hour show. I mean, it's all of it's good, and it's not something you're going to throw away. And it's something people come back. I talked to people that were at my show 15 years ago. Go, gosh, I learned so much from it. I put myself through college. My start was those few little tricks I bought from you at that magic shop, or some of the things I get from. I have an inspirational message at the end of my show, and those things, you know, stick with people. But yeah, I try to be Disney-like. I mean, I have a well-known name, and why not sell them something? But I want it to be something of value, not just junk that they're going to throw in the trash. I wouldn't feel good about that. So I try to keep that something that they're going to keep, but not just trash. But yeah, why not sell? They're here, they're tourists, they want to spend money, so might as well try to get your fair share.
that is great. I think it's inspired. It's you're making me think in so many levels here. But that's just really good if you're selling of the kits is such quality stuff that it's going to inspire a few kids perhaps to really perform themselves. I think that's terrific. I think we just got. I think I thought I saw a question come through there for a second that I would. Let me have to refresh my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, what did I wrote a couple of other notes down here.
Yeah, we had a lot of notes. Probably should get to some of these questions. Huh? Yeah, I've got a lot of questions. But yeah, what do you like to talk about?
Let's see here.
What's the next topic, my friend?
We have a question has been posted by Alexander Jensen. Can you ask him if he has ever considered doing tutorial videos? He taught me once, the best instruction I ever got.
Yes, we are. Matter of fact, we've the young man that's in my show and part of the festival, John Venus, is a film student. He's producing my videos now and doing extravagant, awesome work. Something I've tried to do in the past 3 years, but the people I've hired just didn't see the vision that I had, and it wasn't working. But John's come on board, and he's doing incredible videos. We are going to be doing Maxwell Blade instructional DVDs coming up soon, and I think one of the things we're going to touch on, and I've talked about with Jeff McBride and Michael Lamar, is not only effects, like they teach effects, I want to teach how to produce a magic show and how to produce it well, when to talk, when to do the comedy, when to play the music, the things to maybe say and not say. I think that is my forte, is producing a well-rounded show that appeals to the masses of people. I don't particularly have one forte. I do all kinds of magic, and I perform everything from close-up to grand illusion. This is more polar and comedy. But I think that there's a lot of information out there. We will produce some instructional stuff, but I think what people need now, a lot of the magicians I talk to, are really good instructions on how to produce a show. And that seems to be lacking in the magic world. So that's something I'm going to work on heavily this next year. That's definitely in our goals. It will be coming out by next March. Absolutely.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. If you keep in touch with Full Circle, we'll post some notices when that stuff comes out. That'd be great to see. I think that there is a real shortage of that approach in tutorials.
Sure. I mean, a lot of guys just want to buy magic effects and buy tricks, but you know, when I put my first small show together, my manager, you know, I wanted big illusions and I was performing smaller things, but he told me, he said, Maxwell, it's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. And your character sells a trick. And I think what's what a lot of people need to realize, develop your character. It's not about getting bigger, and even though eventually I acquired the grand illusions and had that type of show, but really if you can find out what your forte is within your personality and what come across good to people, I have this God-given talent to touch base with my audience and have a charisma where when I step on stage, I own it, but I'm not this dark character who's untouchable. I'm a likable guy. I'm having fun. And when you see me, you see my show, I'm genuinely having fun with you. I'm not just performing an act for you. People love that. They just go, oh man, this guy's, you know, I'm just a guy who's doing what I love. And I think that's one of the things that I can really that I bring to the table as far as my show. I just love it. It's not a job, but yeah, I think the videos, as we're saying, will be beneficial to people out there who are performers that just want to keep buying magic tricks. Take what you have and the ones you're good at, and let me teach you how to put together a show and choose the music that makes those effects really calm. Because if you touch someone's heart, they'll remember you forever.
That's terrific. And you know, if you can project the love that you have performing and the enjoyment you get with the audience, that's the immediate connection with the audience that people really need. People don't sometimes understand you can't be separate from the audience. You've got to make that connection.
Exactly. And if it ever becomes a job where, you know, I've got friends who've been in the business, I'm not going to say names, but, you know, I can tell on stage they're just kind of going through the motions, and people see that. You know, they want to see a guy who's loving what he does and having a good time. But I think that's important to be able to connect with the audience. And that's why this little theater is so unique. It's so intimate. You can connect with the audience on a different level as opposed to the big halls where you really don't see most of the people because the spotlight's in your eyes. You don't see many people at all, as a matter of fact. But with this venue, I can pretty much see everybody and have this great connection. And once I step on stage, you know, Lance Burton said it well, at the top of the show, you have to take that barrier down. And, man, when I step out, that barrier goes immediately, and I touch with the audience, and we just have a great dance.
That's great. No fourth wall to that theater.
Yeah.
I can see another question here. Laura from Full Circle here is asking a couple of questions. One thing she's interested in is about your building of your props. Do you have someone that you use to get them built, or do you work yourself on them?
I built them myself. As I said, I grew up around the building industry, and as I said, I built my house myself. I mean, every aspect of it. I grew up learning that craft, and I did that early on before I went professional in the magic world. People don't know that, but that's what I did. So I have the knowledge and I have the tools. I have a giant warehouse here where I keep all my tools and all my props. Some of them I bought from a grand friend of mine who was a mentalist back in the 70s. You might remember a guy named Damon Reinbold. And when I first opened my big show, I think I bought a cremation, habits, and a guillotine, habits, and a shredder from him. A great guy. And then I built my own shadow box, which is a big shadow box that I can banish 4 girls out of. I built the Magician's Revenge. I built the Interlude, which I don't use because it's copyrighted, of course, but I built a lot of those props myself, and they're professional-looking props. They're well done. But yeah, I'm a hands-on guy. I love to build magic props. They're a lot of fun to build, and to make them look professionally done has always been a real forte. But having the knowledge as a child and grew up around that industry, while I had the knowledge to do it, which was always a blessing with owning my own theater as opposed to hiring a contractor. I did it all myself. Hire a few people, of course, but that's what made it somewhat easier and certainly the goal obtainable because I did the work myself. Otherwise, I would have to hire a contractor, to do a $500,000 remodel for me. So that's always been helpful all my life, the building industry, yes.
Great. Wow, you're a real jack of all trades, but that's really got to come in handy.
Yeah. I do. To answer Laura's question, I love building my own props. Some of them I built, but some of them I've bought as well. So I've had a collection of both. My big performance had a pretty much even keel of purchased and built some of the props. So it was about half and half.
Very cool. I see another question from...
real quickly, if you go to YouTube and watch the Shadow Box, or I think the Dakota chair we built, the Revenge we built, and I always try to change those big illusions. If you notice my Revenge on YouTube, it has a totally different ending than anything I've ever seen. And even the sub-track I did, I bring 2 girls out of the box at the end. So those are available to see on YouTube anytime. So check those out. Those are props I built, yes.
I think maybe we'll put a link up to your YouTube channel when we're done here. That'd be great. I would love to see that.
Sure, would love to.
Terrific. I see another question also from Laura about, I think this probably relates to logistics. She's saying, how do you determine who goes on what spot when performing as a group of magicians or illusionists, and is equipment ever a problem? I guess she's thinking of the festival kind of presentation when you bring multiple people in.
Yeah, well, we try to put it together like a restaurant. It's a menu of different performers with different styles. Nobody, even though some of us do some of the same effects, we make sure on that particular show that we don't copy any effects. You know, it's been really simple. You know, Jeff and I maybe do some of the same, or Jay and Jeff, and we'll just sit down. We'll sit down before the show. Basically, we'll write the show out. This is what we're going to do. We sound check it, I take it, go on. These guys are all pros like myself. We've done it for so long. It's just pretty easy to do, but we're careful about not duplicating styles that are much the same. All of us are very different, from Jay Scott, Barry, myself, to Jeff McBride, Michael Lamar, Andrew, all different. It's just like going to a wonderful restaurant with all these great things you can order. So we're careful not to duplicate acts that might be very, very much the same as we're putting together the festivals, and certainly the galas where everybody's on one show.
Right. So in your regular show, can you tell us just about some of what your favorite effects are these days? I understand, you know, you're not doing as many of the big illusions anymore, but what kind of things do you get the biggest charge out of? What kind of things get the biggest audience reaction?
Well, you know, I've gone back to some of my roots when I put together the cabaret show. And one effect I came up with that I've never sold is I take a $100 bill from someone in the audience and I tear the serial number off. I then give the piece to the spectator, and as a prize, sort of a joke, I give them a cup of cheese dip, sealed up cheese dip, in which they have in their possession the entire show. And it's tied together at the end. Oh, then I burn the bill. I burn the 3/4 of the $100 bill in the flame in a clear cup in front of them. I set it on the mantle and, of course, make the comment, you know, by the end of the show, you'll get the $50 back, which gets a laugh. At the end of my performance, I think, oh, by the way, we should do something about that $10 that we burned in the beginning. And then I said, you have the piece of the bill? Yes. The cheese dip. Let me start with the cheese dip. I open the cheese dip. I peel the lid off, the plastic lid. I show it sealed up. I pull the metal top off. I reach down inside with my hands, and I pull out the $100 bill, which we do a little money laundering. And when I unfold it, it is the bill that we burnt in the beginning of the show, so it's missing the corner, in which I then grab their piece and show that it fits perfectly, and the serial numbers match. And I simply fold it up, so, you know, when you get home, just tape this back together, and then I just unfold it, and it's back to one piece again. But it's sloppy wet, back to one I washed. That's an effect that I come up with, as opposed to, like, you know, Bill to Lemon, I want to be doing something different. But that effect, and then my ending effect is the Harris Sands, which I tie together with a snowstorm, and I use Dreamweaver from Gary Wright and some special effect lighting. That always gets them. You know, even a zombie routine I do, but I've tied it together with a multiplying ball routine I do. They all go into a hat, and then they vanish, and then, of course, I turn in the little Vernet silver ball into the zombie. And I do it a little bit different than anybody. One of my favorite tricks, I think, and Jeff McBride's favorite, is my multiplying bottles trick, which he says is the best in the world, which always makes me feel good. But I use a double set of bottles, a table, and I use one of my songs from the 80s as the soundtrack. And it's not a funny bit. I don't say a word throughout it. It's done a little differently than anybody, and that always gets, I think that's the most memorable effect. People say, oh, my God, where did all those bottles come from? They just can't grasp it. So those are a couple of the effects. I try to be original in all these effects, even if they're a simple effect you've seen for 50 years. I try to change it just a little bit, if not only to fool the audience, but sometimes even to fool the magicians. So I like to change the effects of it. I think those are a few that people really comment on. And even some of my opening act is a manipulation act. It's, see, 8 minutes long. And it goes from card manipulation to coins to ropes to silks, a couple little box tricks. It's well choreographed, and people always comment on how entertaining that is to them. So that's a few of the effects I'm using, even in this little show. It's not about big boxes. It's just about the presentation. because it's 30% prop and 70% the magician making it entertaining no matter what effect that you're doing. And I've learned that over the years. You can take something small and make it grand.
That's great. That is terrific. When you do the full show, how long is your full show? And if it's longer than a certain amount, do you have an intermission or not, or you have any feelings about that?
I used to take intermission, and basically we all know in the theater business that intermission is kind of a way to sell people things. But I've always hated intermission at shows. I don't like them. It's just a way to stop, and then you have to restart the audience. So in this show, I don't take an intermission, but midway through, I introduce the magic kit and maybe do a $7 routine to show them what it does, and then that's what sells it. And we keep rolling. My show is an hour and 40 minutes long. My special guest, John Venus, adds about 6 minutes to that. So it's about an hour and 45, hour and 50-minute production from start to finish. So it's a pretty good long show, but it is such a show that nothing feels repeated. It continually flows. I get kids up and do a little SpongeBob routine and dress them up and put a mustache, and I jack their hair up like mine, and the next thing you know, here comes my guillotine out. So it's just, to me, it's one of the best shows I've ever produced, even up against the bigger productions I've done. But it's just well done and well-rounded with the right elements to make it a really good show.
That is terrific. Do you generally keep a pretty stable, set list of effects for yourself, or do you still add things, or are you still in the business of creating new effects? So there's a lot of people very interested in creating effects.
I love to create effects, and owning my own theater, I've been in one town for 18 years, I have found that I have to change it up to keep people coming back. But if you only change 2 or 3 effects every year, people come back and go, oh, I love your new show. You don't have to change it all up. I'll always have my favorites that I do. But for me, I get a little bored doing the same things every show, so I continually change it and challenge myself. And then my show is sort of choreographed, but there's a lot of ad-lib in there. And I might go say, hey, I'm going to do the predictions. When I come back out, he knows where I'm going to put them, and there's a break. So I'll sometimes just change it up on the spur of the moment. I walk backstage and go, hey, I'm changing this tonight. Okay, let's go with it. But they've been part of my crew for 10 years, so they know how I am. But I do love creating new effects and challenging myself. If I continue to do the same act all my life, I think I would get a little bit bored. So I love creating, and I love passing it along to young kids. But you have to change it to be able to keep bringing people back. I have people who've been coming to this show for 18 years. Every year they come here, they come to watch it, and sometimes they'll come 2 or 3 times in the summer. So it's important to change it. Now, if you're on the road going to the people, it's not so important because you're having a new crowd. There's a new crowd of people here in town over 3 days. A lot of them are repeat business from years. People come to Hot Springs for their whole life. It's one of those destinations. There's a lot to do. So it's important to change your show up to keep them entertained. But as I said, you can do 2 or 3 effects, and they think you have an entirely new show. But it keeps it fun for me, too. I love to create new effects and to do them on stage live. It's fun, and it makes it entertaining for me. As a performer, I think it's important to do that.
That's excellent. That makes total sense, especially if you're working in the same venue and do repeat the audiences periodically. Another thing people are very interested in is, actually there's 2 things that a lot of people talk about. One is you mentioned that you're a funny guy, that you have a lot of comedy in the act, and whether most of that is most of that impromptu, or do you have a certain amount written and scripted for yourself, and how much do you do scripting? And a lot of people talk about storytelling magic to make greater meaning for magic, and do you work a lot of that into your effects as well, that kind of thing?
I do. I tell a story about a mentor, which was kind of a takeoff on a guy I learned a little bit from, but I've flavored it up and made the relationship really better than it was. So I do some storytelling. I talk about a guy, Edward C. Bentley from Australia, who taught me this and that. I think storytelling is very important, and my entire big show was woven around this unsolved mystery that allegedly happened in that theater in the 1920s when they built it, but in all truth, it was just totally made up. I do some storytelling in this show. Some of the comedy is scripted, but I'm so quick-witted. I can take something that someone says out of the audience and I can go with it, which has always been a forte of mine. But it's fun every night to get kids on stage to do the sponge ball or the dressing up or the guillotine, because I can never tell what's going to happen, and it's different every night. It's a blast. You get kids that are over the top. You get kids that are shy. So there are certain elements of this show that I don't know what's going to happen, which is fun for me every night. But it's always a little bit of scripted comedy. But, man, if somebody comes back with a line or something happens, I'm very willing to come back with exactly the right words to say to really make it funny. So, you know, I've always had the ability to do that. So I enjoy the comedic side of the show, too. It makes it funny. And sometimes I crack myself up. It's funny, the things that people say, and I have to have a real quick filter what comes to my brain, because, you know, I can be over the top sometimes. And some of the comedies geared to adults. Now, nothing's risque, but I make some jokes the kids don't get, and it's nothing nasty, but the adults just die laughing. But when those kids come on stage, and you hear a lot of the comments on some of the comments you talked about, the reviews, people really appreciate the ability I have to bring their children up and have a good time, and the memory they have of watching that happen. So I think it's important in magic shows to have a little bit of storytelling. Some of it can be true, some of it can not be true, but you have to mix them into a way that people connect with on a human level to make it feel like for themselves or something that they may have experienced growing up. So it is important to have some storytelling, but I've never copied, and as you young performers out there, I encourage you, if you want to have your own show, don't copy anything. Come up with your own stories and your own pattern, and you'll find that that's more beneficial.
That's great. A couple of other questions from another question from Laura actually here about now. Again, you don't perform with a lot of other people all the time, but you do it at least the one time a year. If you were in a venue with a group of people performing for an evening show, I guess the real question is if you had to pick, an opener, a closer, or in the middle of the act, would you have a preference of opening a show, closing a show, and why?
I don't. With the lineup that we have, what we generally do is Jeff McBride opens the festival and I close the festival. But when we put the galas together, we kind of take turns opening and closing because all the acts are so well done. But you know what? To me, I don't have an ego, so it doesn't matter to me whether I open it or close it. Just to be a part of it is fantastic. But there are certain effects that I like to do in the galas, like maybe the multiplying bottles or my sands routine, or maybe my manipulation routine, or even the comedy bits with an invisible deck. But I think 10 years ago I would prefer to close shows, but with this caliber of performers, it just doesn't really matter who opens or who closes. It's such a blast, right? And all the acts are so profound that generally when I produce a show, I would take a strong act to begin, and maybe some comedic parts, a little bit lighter acts in the middle, and then strong at the ending. But to be quite frank, all these guys, we can all close and open the show. So it's been pretty easy to put together those shows, and everybody's comfortable with where you put them. There's no ego, no, I want to close it, I want to open it. That's very unique. But, when you get this kind of lineup, and these fellows that have performed have been on tour for as long as they have, a lot of those egos are gone, and we're just having a good time doing what we love to do. Therefore, hey, let's do it this way tonight. How about tomorrow night you close the show? Hey, I'm in. That sounds great. And we get in there and tech it. And we did the one in North Carolina, and the tech was a little bit different because we had to tech each act with the lights and sound, and it was a lot to do, and especially for their sound, it wasn't quite used to that big of a production. But here, it's smaller, so the lighting system and sound system is much easier, so it's easier for us to script them out and do them. But it's been real easy to put those shows together, to be quite honest with you.
There's a couple of people I think who are curious. Do you still? I get the picture that most, if not all, of your work is done around your home show there, except maybe for the Weekend of Wonder. I think you said it's in North Carolina. You have one. Do you tour it all outside of your home base, or is it pretty much just that one event?
I tour some in the off season when I'm in the fall and winter when I'm only doing 2 shows a week. I will tour. I mean, sometimes a casino will call and say, "Hey, would you like to come out?" Sure, and I enjoy those shows. It's different, but I have fun. Or maybe some private events that people have. A lot of corporations come to town and have conventions here, and they'll invite me over to the convention center or even a hotel ballroom. There's the old hotel here called the Origin. It's been around since 1920. They have a fantastic ballroom. I've done 100 shows there for corporate events. But I do travel outside to answer that question somewhat. If I feel like it's beneficial and it's fun and it's not going to contradict with my schedule here. And what we try to do with the Weekend of Wonders currently, since it's still in the stages, is that we try to schedule those in a season where I'm not just packing every day. Otherwise, it wouldn't be beneficial for me money-wise to do so. So the one we do here is in September, and then the one in Asheville, which we hope to make an annual event, is in May. But yeah, I love to go outside the theater and perform in places. I'm glad I've had my own home, but it is fun to go outside and do another showroom or another theater at times. If I feel like it's beneficial for me to do that, yeah, fun.
Perfect.
I'm not on tour all the time, again, because I enjoy having my own home. But yeah, it's fun to go outside sometimes. So I do, yes.
Excellent, excellent. Another question about bringing audiences in. Do you mostly get word of mouth and repeat business, or do you spend much time and resources on publicity and advertising?
I do advertise, and trust me, in the 18 years I've learned what works and doesn't work. There are a few magazines I do. There are brochures, which I have a handful here. I can show you some from. This is my first show in '98. This is the Theater Magic, I think, in the year 2000. This is a real scary one I had when I first opened here. I called it the Magic London Theater. Had some flames. This is my current brochure. Point being, we produce about 40,000 of these a year, and they're distributed by a company in over 200 locations. But my biggest support is the people in this community send me people every day. I mean, I had a lady last time. I said, everywhere we went today, I want you to know everybody just loves you. They said, make sure you go see Maxwell while you're in town. So I've had to advertise a whole lot less now because the word of mouth is the best advertising you can have. So I do the brochures. I do a couple of magazines. The city does a great job of promoting our city. And so I've had to do less over the years, but I've certainly learned what works and doesn't work. We have coupon systems that I use, so I know what works. I run an ad. There's usually a coupon involved, so we can track them to see if it's worth the money we spent on that particular ad. So I've really learned in running my own theater what works and doesn't work, and we've been doing it so long, it's just like clockwork now. It's very easy to do. As is the magic shop right in the concession area that we continually stock ourselves every day. I'm a hands-on owner. I don't just walk in here and put some hairspray on and get on stage. I'm virtually here from 10 a.m. till 11 p.m. every night, and I make sure everything's stocked and everything running smooth. All my staff are very nice, well-trained, cordial people. They seat you. They take care of you in the snack bar. And so the aspects of running this theater are very easy now because I've done it for so long. But advertising-wise, if you have a good product, people are going to come see you. Being in this small community, people all over town send me people on a daily basis, and all of these repeat. But we have a good name here. If you have a good product, guess what? People are going to come watch.
Wow. What a great situation you've built for yourself. I'm really, really impressed.
I'm really blessed. I really have probably one of the best situations that you can ask for, to not to have to travel. But at the same time, when I was on tour, I enjoyed that. But this season in my life, I really enjoy just being here. I have 3 children that are involved, And my oldest daughter is 27, which that was really the inspiration to get off the road. And then my younger daughters are 16, and my 10-year-old who is here up front. They've spent a lifetime on stage. I've put those girls on stage since they were 2. And so that's neat to be able to do that, as opposed to being, away a lot of the time. They can be here. My 10-year-old up there can run those computers. She can run the snack bar. She can run the magic shop. My 16-year-old can step back there right now and do my entire show, front to back, with the sound and the lights. So that gives them, that base. They're both big into cheerleading now, so they don't perform as much as they did. Now they're part of the Weekend of Wonder Magic Fest, Stars of Tomorrow, but it gives them a great foundation to have self-esteem and to be on a stage and feel comfortable. So I think that's been a blessing, too, to have my children involved and be right here in one location.
That's terrific. That is terrific. I really like that. Neither of my sons has actually followed me into magic, but luckily I play music myself, and both of them do that, so I'm happy to pass some performing art on to them.
Yeah, well, my girls may come back to it, but they're I say world class. Both of them made it to the Nationals last year. The 16-year-old was number 5 in the nation. Her team, and then Gabby is quite the little gymnast. Is in the top in this region. So they've chosen this path, and they may come back to it. But the reality is, I've gave them that foundation of being on stage, being comfortable, being in front of people, not afraid to talk to people. So really, it affects their entire life later on, no matter if they choose to do it or not.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let's see, we're coming down the home stretch. I can throw you a few more here. That are just some.
Quickly, I can't believe it's already 4 o'clock or after.
I know, it's amazing. 5 o'clock where I am. We don't have a strict ending to it. Although I'm going to be moving on shortly to something else. But one question that people seem to love to ask. I'll ask you a couple that come on the group, and people ask each other all the time, and that's when something goes wrong, if it ever does, and I'm sure it does. It happens to everybody. Do you have any particular, a funny story or a horror story about something that, went wrong in a big way and you either were able to recover from or was a disaster either way?
Yeah, well, we've all had those, I tell you this, if something goes wrong, never let it be known, because most of the time, the audience never knows it's wrong unless it's a complete disaster. I've had one complete disaster that I can recall in about 2001 while doing the cremation, which, if you're not familiar, when you put a girl in this coffin-like looking box, you then throw a torch in, it explodes with fire, it unfolds, and there's skeletons. But one night, one of the assistants, well, actually it was my wife, and this was in sort of the divorce phase, we weren't getting along too well, but instead of rolling the prop around to her, I just kind of slung it around to her, and it hit a little hole in the stage, and it fell over with this girl in the prop on fire.
Uh-oh.
And, you just have to pick it up and go, you know what? That wasn't part of the show, folks. That was a mistake. But the interesting thing is they never saw the girl where she was. They just knew it fell over, and, of course, there wasn't a big fire. But that was one time you just caught and go, you know what? That's an error, people. Now, if something goes wrong now, I try to cover it up as best I can. But if it's a definite, I got you, you just make a joke about it and keep going. Just keep going. That's the point. Don't stop.
Yep.
Just keep on growing. Don't let it affect you. Most of all, don't let it affect the rest of your performance, because it will be upsetting, especially if you're young and new to performing. It'll upset you. But don't let the show fall apart. Just go on, laugh it off, and keep going.
Yep. No, it's funny, that it really does happen to the best of everyone, and the best thing that you can do is handle it with humor. I took my wife when we did go out to Las Vegas to see the Jeff McBride School. We stopped and saw Penn and Teller one night.
Oh, yeah.
Penn and Teller do a very well-known effect in which they have a volunteer come up on the stage with a cell phone, and they borrow the phone, vanish it. It's kind of a sucker routine. She doesn't know where it's going, but everybody else does, and then it magically reappears inside of a dead fish, and a frozen solid block of ice. And then the way they prove that it's the real, and they talked at first about how they had to spend many years learning how to control every aspect of the performance and their audience, to make sure things work well when you do stuff like this. And the girl they brought the cell phone out, and the way they prove it is that mom or a friend sitting in the audience calls the cell phone so that they hear it ringing inside the fish as they pull it out. And sure enough, there was no ringing. Mom called it, no ringing. They pulled the thing out, battery was dead.
So I'm sure they just covered up and kept going and got the phone out from where it was anyway.
They did, but they really gave each other a great look. Like, here's one more thing we have to add to the checklist of stuff we got to check before we borrow that cell phone.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's how you learn from effects. You know, I've had similar things happen. You go, you know what? I didn't think about that. But right. I promise you, when the error comes, you will think about it.
That's the
we've all had disasters, and you know, you just keep going.
Yep.
That's all you can do, really. And the best thing to do to cover up a mistake is just laugh about it, laugh at yourself. You know, as a performer, I never take myself real serious. I'm just having a good time, and just laugh it off. We're all humans, and we all make mistakes. So what?
That's right. And as you said, half the time if you're doing a lot of routines, especially close-up and things like that, that people never really know that there was an error in the first place. You just change the effect up.
Well, yeah, you know, sometimes I'll drop this or to drop that, and I'll make it part of the routine. Sometimes it makes it even more magic. Sometimes those mistakes can end up being a part of your routine if you pay close attention to some of those errors. It can actually make it, I've had some effects I've made a little bit better by, oh, wait a minute, if I drop that and then I pick it up and do this, well, it makes it better. So and I think a lot of effects are improved by error and learning sometimes. So be aware of those things. Sometimes it can make your actor a piece better if you're paying attention. So not always a bad thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this has been very enlightening, and I'm gonna definitely want to. I'm gonna make a way to come by and talk to you one of these days in your home base there, because what you've done with the theater in your own area is very inspiring. I think a lot of people would love to try doing something that you've done.
I think it takes just believing in yourself and having enough. You know, don't let fear stop you from anything. If you have a dream, go for it. You know, if it doesn't work out, you gave it your best. And I've been one of the guys that were fortunate enough to be able to sustain. And, you know, I've been through a lot of bad things, and I've been down some bad roads, but quickly learn from those mistakes, get up and keep going. But I've always been a risk taker, and I think that's the same for J. Scott Barry and I when we do The Wicked and War. It was a risk. We risk our own money, but, you know, it's paying off, and I'm very blessed to be able to do what I love every day and to make people laugh and create this feeling of magic, and to be able to do it for a living is certainly a blessing, and to make good money, you know, I just really blessed, and I recognize it every day. And I certainly don't have an ego or think I'm better than anybody else. I'm just a guy who got lucky and worked hard at it and stayed at it, and it worked out.
Well, Maxwell, that is awesome, and you are definitely an inspiration, no question about it. So
Thank you,
we're going to wrap it up here. Before we go, I want to thank Laura Isley from Full Circle Magic for setting this up, and I want to thank Maxwell for a very enlightening and inspiring hour. I'm going to take a lot of notes from this. Before we go, also, I'd like to just mention that if you want to tune in again, 1 week from today, our next Q&A, August 5th, same time in the evening, will be Kenton Nepper. And really looking forward to that. So for today, we are going to wrap it up and say one more time, thank you very much, Maxwell, and we'll see you next time on the Full Circle Q&A.
Thank you all. God bless. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.